In the somber quietude of a new dawn, Thomas Tom Walker, a man forged in the fires of construction sites and hardened by the relentless sun, found his morning ritual shattered. The bitter tang of overcooked coffee, a testament to a mind already adrift, filled his modest kitchen. At 45, the subtle silvering at his temples merely accented the razor-sharp focus in his blue eyes, a lingering echo of military days that now served him well in civilian life. He reached for the newspaper, a fleeting moment of peace before the grind of the day, a stark contrast to the disciplined order that usually governed his life, mirroring the precision he brought to every task. The foreman's salary, while not opulent, had always ensured a comfortable haven for his wife, Eleanor, and their 21-year-old daughter, Ava. By the way, please like and subscribe if you enjoy stories like this. Then the shrill, jarring assault of the phone. Tom's hand froze, suspended over his coffee cup. An unknown number. A clinical, detached voice sliced through the silence. "Mr. Walker, this is Memorial Hospital. Your daughter, Ava, has been brought to our emergency department." His grip tightened, knuckles white. "What happened?" he demanded, his voice a taut wire. "We can't discuss details over the phone, but you should come immediately." "I'm on my way." The words were steady, but a frantic drumbeat echoed in his chest. He snatched his jacket, breakfast forgotten, boots thundering a furious rhythm against the kitchen floor. The old pickup roared to life, a desperate beast unleashed, as he careened down the driveway with controlled, terrifying urgency. The hospital's unforgiving fluorescent light seemed to pierce his very soul as he strode through the emergency ward. A nurse gestured towards a curtained bay. Tom's military precision, dormant for years, surged to the forefront as he took in the horrifying tableau. Ava lay on the gurney, her face a canvas of grotesque bruises, one eye swollen shut, tears carving paths through the grime on her cheeks. Her hands trembled, clutching a thin, insufficient hospital blanket. "Daddy?" Her voice, a raw, broken whisper, tore through him. He was at her side in an instant, his large hand enveloping her small one, a gentle touch that belied the volcano of fury erupting within him. "I'm here, baby girl. Tell me what happened." Her words spilled out, punctuated by ragged sobs. "I came home early from Sarah's. I heard noises upstairs." She squeezed her eyes shut, a fresh wave of tears. "In your bedroom." Tom's jaw clenched, a muscle twitching. "Go on." "Mom was there, with Uncle Rick." Her voice dropped to a barely audible whisper. "They were together." The words struck him with the force of physical blows. Eleanor, his wife of 23 years, with Rick, her brother. The smooth-talking businessman who always seemed to have a hidden agenda, a calculating glint in his eye. "I screamed," Ava continued, her body trembling anew. "Then these two men came out of nowhere, Rick's bodyguards. They grabbed me, threw me down the stairs." A fresh torrent of sobs racked her. "They're still there, Dad, drinking your whiskey, laughing." Tom stood, every movement precise, deliberate, a terrifying calm descending. "Did you see a doctor yet?" "They're waiting for x-rays." "Good." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "I'll be back soon." Ava clutched his wrist, a desperate plea in her eyes. "Dad, don't do anything stupid." Tom's lips curved into a chilling, utterly devoid of humor smile. "Nothing stupid, just necessary." He found the nurse's station, approaching the desk with measured, predatory steps. "My daughter, Ava Walker. I need to know her injuries." The nurse, oblivious to the storm brewing within him, tapped at her computer. "Contusions, possible concussion, pending x-rays for her ribs and right wrist." The doctor ordered pain medication. I want all the documentation, Tom interrupted, his voice a low growl. Photos of her injuries, medical reports, everything. Sir, that's not standard procedure. Make it happen. His voice dropped to a barely perceptible whisper, laden with menace. Those bastards aren't getting away with this. The nurse, finally sensing the raw power radiating from him, slowly nodded. I'll see what I can do. Tom's mind raced, a maelstrom of thoughts. Eleanor, his wife, the woman he'd built a life with, was betraying him. With her own brother, Rick, the man who arrived at family dinners with expensive wines and condescending smiles, the man Tom had always instinctively known was rotten beneath his polished veneer. But bodyguards, that hinted at something far grander, far more sinister than a mere illicit affair. Rick's business dealings had always reeked of suspicion, too much money, too few explanations. Now he commanded muscle, men willing to assault a young woman. He pulled out his phone, dialing a number he hadn't touched in years. It's Walker. Remember that favor you owe me from Kandahar? He paused, listening intently. I'm calling it in. I need everything you can find on Richard Thorne's business operations, and I mean everything. He ended the call, his gaze fixed on the emergency room doors. 23 years of marriage, countless family dinners, shared holidays, all a meticulously crafted lie. The betrayal cut him to the bone, but it wasn't the infidelity that ignited his fury. It was Ava, his daughter, his child. They had crossed a line no father could ever tolerate. He returned to Ava's bedside. She had succumbed to a restless, drug-induced sleep. He watched her bruised face, memories of the day she was born flooding his mind. He had sworn then to protect her from any harm. He had failed today, but he would not fail again. A doctor approached, clipboard in hand. Mr. Walker, we need to discuss your daughter's injuries. Tom's eyes never left Ava's face. I need to make one more call. He stepped away, dialing another number. The line rang twice. Detective Ramirez, this is Thomas Walker. We need to talk about Richard Thorne and his associates. He listened briefly. No, not at the station. Somewhere private. This goes deeper than you know. Tom ended the call, returning to Ava's bedside. The doctor waited patiently. Tell me everything, Tom said, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. I want to know exactly what they did to my little girl. As the doctor meticulously detailed Ava's injuries, Tom's rage solidified into something cold, hard, and utterly terrifying. Eleanor, Rick, the bodyguards. They thought they were untouchable. They thought they could hurt his family and then laugh about it over his whiskey. They were wrong. They had no idea what kind of man they were dealing with. But they would learn. Tom would make sure of that. He settled into the chair beside Ava's bed, his mind already mapping out the grim task ahead. First, secure Ava, then gather intelligence. Then they would understand the monumental mistake they had made, the mistake of betraying Thomas Walker, the mistake of hurting his daughter, the mistake of thinking they could ever get away with it. Chapter 2. The Confrontation. Tom's truck crawled down his street, his trained eyes scanning the familiar landscape for anything amiss. Two black SUVs, their windows impenetrably tinted, sat conspicuously in his driveway. Professional muscle, attempting to feign anonymity in a working-class neighborhood. Amateur hour. He parked a block away, approaching on foot, years of military training asserting themselves. The front door hung open, spilling a crude rectangle of light onto the porch. The throb of music, punctuated by raucous laughter, drifted from within. Tom slipped in through the side door, a phantom in his own home. The bass-heavy beat masked his footsteps. He could smell cigarette smoke, a foreign, repulsive scent in a house where he'd never allowed it. Voices, slurred and arrogant, drifted from the living room. "You should have seen his face when I showed up at Christmas dinner. Thanks for the wine, Rick. Clueless bastard." More laughter, then Eleanor's voice thick with alcohol. He never suspected a thing, too busy with his precious routine. Coffee at 6, news at 6:15. Tom's hands curled into fists, white-knuckled. 23 years of marriage reduced to a crude joke for her brother's amusement. He stepped into the doorway, the scene searing itself into his memory. Eleanor sprawled on the couch, a drink sloshing in her hand, her blouse half unbuttoned. Rick lounging beside her, an arm draped possessively around her shoulders. Two men in black suits stood by the windows, attempting a semblance of professionalism despite the beer bottles clutched in their hands. "Get out." Tom's voice, low and resonant, cut through the music like a razor. The room froze. Eleanor's drink slipped from her fingers, splashing onto the carpet. Rick's smirk faltered, his eyes darting towards his bodyguards. "Well, well," Rick drawled, a forced bravado. "The man of the house returns." "5 seconds," Tom said, his voice devoid of inflection. "Then I start removing you." The first bodyguard, young, muscled, wearing his suit like a costume, stepped forward. "Listen, buddy." Tom moved. Years of combat training exploded into brutal, efficient violence. His first strike crushed the man's larynx. As the bodyguard clutched his throat, gasping, Tom's knee drove up into his solar plexus. The man crumpled, a heap of useless muscle. The second guard lunged, reaching for a concealed weapon. Tom intercepted, catching his arm, twisting until bone grated. The guard screamed. Tom slammed his head against the wall once, twice. The man slumped, unconscious. 15 seconds. 2 threats neutralized. Rick stumbled backward, pulling Eleanor with him. "Now, Tom, let's be reasonable." "Reasonable?" Tom advanced, a relentless, terrifying force. "Like your men were reasonable with my daughter?" "She shouldn't have been here," Eleanor blurted, a desperate, pathetic attempt at deflection. "It's not our fault," Tom backhanded her. The crack echoed through the sudden silence. Eleanor sprawled onto the couch, clutching her face, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. "Don't you dare," Tom growled, his voice guttural. "Don't you dare blame her." Rick tried to edge towards the door. Tom caught him by the throat, slamming him against the wall. Rick's feet dangled, his face purpling. "Please," Rick wheezed, desperate. "We can talk about this." "Talk?" Tom increased the pressure, a grim smile on his face. "Like your men talk to Ava with their fists?" He drove his knee into Rick's stomach, then released his grip, letting him fall. As Rick gasped for air, Tom's boot connected with his ribs. Once, twice, 3 times. "Stop!" Eleanor shrieked, tears streaming down her face. "You'll kill him." "No." Tom's voice was terrifyingly calm. "Not yet." He grabbed Rick's hair, yanking his head up. "Your men hurt my little girl. Think I'll return the favor?" What followed was methodical, brutal, and precisely calculated. Tom knew exactly how much damage the human body could endure. He kept Rick conscious, made him feel every agonizing blow. When he finished, Rick lay curled on the floor, sobbing, blood dripping from his nose and lips, pooling on the carpet Tom had painstakingly installed last summer. Tom turned to Eleanor. She pressed herself against the couch, trembling, her eyes wide with fear. "Tommy, please," she whimpered. "I can explain." "Don't call me that." He looked at her as if she were a repulsive stranger. Get your things, get out. If you're still here in 10 minutes, you'll wish you weren't. Eleanor staggered to her feet. Where am I supposed to go? Ask your brother. Tom's laugh held no humor, a chilling, hollow sound. Once he can talk again. He turned to the bodyguards, one unconscious, the other still clutching his throat. Take your boss and get out. If I see any of you again, they won't find your bodies. The conscious guard, a shadow of his former self, dragged himself to his feet, helping his partner up. Together they lifted the groaning Rick. This isn't over, Rick mumbled through bloody, swollen lips. You're right. Tom smiled, a chilling, predatory baring of teeth, and both guards took an involuntary step back. It's just beginning. He watched them load Rick into one of the SUVs. Eleanor stumbled after them, mascara streaking her tear-stained cheeks. She looked back once, a desperate, pleading glance, but Tom had already turned away. Inside, he surveyed the wreckage, broken glass, blood on his carpet, cigarette burns on his coffee table, the home he'd built, defiled by their vile presence. His phone buzzed, a text from Mac. Found something, meet me tonight. Tom nodded to himself. Eleanor and Rick thought this was over. They thought he'd had his revenge, exhausted his rage. They were wrong. This wasn't about revenge. This was about justice. For Ava. For the years they'd laughed behind his back. For every holiday dinner where Rick had sat at his table, secretly plotting the destruction of his family. Tom walked to his bedroom, their bedroom. The bed, a silent witness to her betrayal, still bore the evidence of their illicit affair. He stripped the sheets, methodically, carried them to the backyard, and set them ablaze. Then he made a series of calls. To his bank, to his lawyer, to Detective Ramirez. Eleanor thought she knew him, thought he was predictable, boring, safe. She was about to learn how profoundly wrong she was. They all were. Chapter 3. The Backstories. In the quiet, unsettling aftermath of violence, Tom sat in his chair, staring at the blank television screen. The house felt hollow, tainted, a ghost of its former self. Blood still stained his knuckles, Rick's blood. His phone buzzed again. Mac, construction site, 1 hour. Tom closed his eyes, memories flooding back, a torrent of images from a life he'd thought he'd left behind. Afghanistan, 2003. The ambush that had nearly claimed both their lives. Mac pulling him to safety as bullets tore through the air, their unspoken debt forged in blood and gunfire. He hadn't always been this man, capable of calculated violence, of cold, relentless retribution. Once he'd been a small-town kid with simple dreams. Military service had irrevocably altered him, teaching him about duty, about loyalty, and about the harsh, unyielding realities of a world where violence sometimes served as the only language people respected. The day he met Eleanor replayed in his mind. She had been a waitress at the local diner, all bright smiles and endless chatter. He, freshly discharged, was still grappling with the jarring transition to civilian life. She had seemed like an anchor, something tangible to hold on to while his mind still echoed with gunfire and screams. Their courtship had been swift, passionate. She spoke of her dreams, a big house, fancy cars, the kind of life her brother Rick flaunted. Tom had promised to give her everything he could, not riches, but stability, security, a home. For years it had seemed enough. They'd had Ava, bought this house, meticulously built a life. Tom had worked his way up from laborer to foreman, taking immense pride in honest, hard work. Eleanor had seemed happy, or so he desperately wanted to believe. Now he wondered how long the insidious lies had been festering. How long she'd looked at his calloused hands and worn work boots with barely concealed contempt. How long had she been conspiring with Rick, laughing at the faithful husband who trusted her implicitly? Rick. Tom's hands clenched at the mere thought of his brother-in-law, the golden boy of the family, with his designer suits and slick charm. Tom had never truly trusted him, had always discerned the predator lurking beneath the polished exterior. But for Eleanor's sake, he'd welcomed Rick into his home, broken bread with him, endured his subtle jabs and condescending smiles. Tom's phone rang. Detective Ramirez, he answered, his voice flat. Walker, Ramirez said without preamble. Got some information on your brother-in-law. You're not going to like it. Those weren't just bodyguards at your house. They're enforcers. Rick's been running a protection racket, squeezing local businesses. He's got cops on the payroll, judges in his pocket. Tom absorbed this, his expression grim. That explains the muscle. There's more, Ramirez continued, a hint of unease in her voice. Your wife's been making withdrawals, big ones, moving money into offshore accounts. How long? Tom's voice was barely a whisper. 6 months at least, Walker. Ramirez hesitated. They were planning to clean you out. Divorce papers are already drawn up. They were going to take everything, leave you with nothing but debt. Tom's laugh was harsh, devoid of any mirth. Appreciate the intel, detective. Walker. Ramirez's voice sharpened. Don't do anything stupid. Rick's connected. He's dangerous. So am I. Tom ended the call. He stood, moving through the house with renewed purpose. In the bedroom, he opened the closet, pushed aside hanging clothes. The safe hidden behind a false panel was his private sanctuary, one secret Eleanor had never discovered. Inside lay the remnants of his military life. Documents, medals, a well-worn book of contacts from his service days, men who owed him favors, men who knew how to handle problems quietly. The construction site was cloaked in darkness when he arrived. Mac's truck was parked in the shadows, away from the prying streetlights. Tom approached cautiously, scanning for surveillance. Old habits died hard. Mac stood by a stack of steel beams, his broad frame silhouetted against the night sky. 20 years of civilian life hadn't softened him. He still moved like a soldier, alert and ready. You look like hell, Mac said as Tom approached. You should see the other guy. Mac nodded toward his truck. Got something to show you? Inside the truck's cab, Mac pulled out a laptop. Been doing some digging on Rick's operations. Man's got his fingers in everything. Real estate fraud, protection rackets, money laundering. But here's the interesting part. He turned the screen toward Tom. Bank statements, property records, shell companies. Your wife's name keeps popping up. She's been working with Rick for years, helping him move money around. She's not just his lover, she's his partner. Tom studied the documents, his expression hardening, a cold fury settling in his gut. She played me for a fool. There's more, Mac continued. Rick's got problems. He borrowed big from some dangerous people. Word is he's desperate for cash. That's probably why they accelerated their timeline with you. Timeline? Mac pulled up more documents. They've been planning this for months. The divorce, the asset transfers, all of it. They were going to bleed you dry, saddle you with Rick's debts. You'd have lost everything, house, savings, maybe even ended up in jail for their financial schemes. Tom absorbed this in silence. The betrayal went deeper than he'd ever imagined. Not just a sordid affair, but a calculated, ruthless plot to destroy him. What about Ava? He asked finally, his voice raw. She wasn't supposed to be home today. They got sloppy, got caught. Rick's guys panicked. Tom's jaw clenched, a vein throbbing in his temple. "They hurt my little girl, and they'll pay for that." Mac assured him, his voice serious. "But you need to be smart about this. Rick's got connections. You go after him head on, you'll end up dead or in prison." "I'm not going to kill him," Tom said quietly, a chilling calm in his voice. "Death's too quick, too clean. I want them to suffer. I want them to lose everything, just like they planned for me." Mac studied his old friend's face. "You've got a plan." "Getting there." Tom stood. "I need you to keep digging. Bank records, business dealings, everything. I want to know every skeleton in their closet." "What about Eleanor?" Tom's expression turned cold, utterly devoid of emotion. "She made her choice. Now she lives with it." He left Mac and drove home, his mind methodically working through possibilities. The house felt different now. A crime scene, not a sanctuary. He walked through each room, noting the small, insidious signs he'd missed. The extra phone she'd hidden in her jewelry box, the financial documents tucked behind the filing cabinet, the business cards from offshore banks, all the pieces of their elaborate betrayal hidden in plain sight. In Ava's room, he paused. Photos covered her walls, family vacations, birthdays, graduations. Eleanor smiling, playing the devoted mother, all while meticulously plotting to destroy their lives. His phone buzzed, a text from Ava. "When can you pick me up?" Tom texted back, "Tomorrow morning. Get some rest." Another text came in, this one from Eleanor. "We need to talk." Tom deleted it without responding. There was nothing left to say. He spent the night in his chair, cleaning his gun, making lists, planning. Eleanor and Rick thought they knew him, the predictable, reliable Thomas Walker, the man who always played by the rules. They had forgotten, or perhaps never knew, what he had been before, the things he'd done in service to his country, the skills he'd learned and never quite forgotten. Tom smiled in the darkness. Time to remind them. As dawn broke, Tom made coffee. Properly this time. No burning. He'd lived through betrayal before, in war, seen what it did to men. But this was different. This wasn't combat. This was family. They had brought war to his home, threatened his child. Now they would learn what that truly meant. The sun rose over his broken home, marking the end of one life and the brutal, inevitable beginning of another. Thomas Walker, husband, father, builder of homes, was gone. In his place stood a warrior, awakened from a long slumber, a man with nothing left to lose and everything to avenge. The war had begun. Chapter 4. The Hospital Visit. Tom strode through the sterile, hushed corridors of the hospital, the measured cadence of his boots echoing against the linoleum. The nurse at the station gave him a knowing nod. They had grown accustomed to his stoic presence over the past day. Through the door's narrow window, he could see Ava, a small, fragile figure in the vast hospital bed, her bruised face turned towards the television mounted on the wall. "Hey, baby girl," he said softly, entering the room. Ava's eyes, despite their swelling, lit up with a faint flicker of hope. "Dad?" Her voice was stronger than before, yet still edged with the lingering tremor of pain. Tom settled into the chair beside her bed, taking her hand in his. The bruises on her face had deepened, a vivid, horrifying timeline of the assault. His jaw tightened at the sight, a familiar rage simmering beneath the surface. "The doctor says I can go home tomorrow," Ava said, a fragile hope in her voice. "Not home," Tom replied, his voice gentle but firm. "I've arranged for you to stay with Sarah for a while." "But Dad—" "No arguments." His voice, though still gentle, carried an undeniable authority. "Home isn't safe right now. I need to handle something." Ava's fingers tightened around his. Mom called me. Tom's expression hardened, a mask of grim determination. What did she say? She tried to explain, said it wasn't what I thought, that Uncle Rick. Ava's voice cracked, a fresh wave of tears welling in her eyes. She said I shouldn't have been there, that it was my fault for coming home early. Tom stood abruptly, pacing to control the surging tide of his fury. Nothing about this is your fault. Nothing. I should have known something was wrong, Ava continued, her voice barely a whisper. The way they'd whisper when you weren't around, how Uncle Rick started showing up more often when you were at work. She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. Mom's been meeting with lawyers. I saw the paperwork in her car last week. I should have told you. You trusted your mother. That's not a crime. Tom returned to her bedside. Tell me everything you remember. When did Rick start coming around more? As Ava spoke, Tom's mind meticulously cataloged every detail, constructing a chilling timeline of betrayal. Eleanor's real estate meetings that ran late, Rick's casual drop-ins always coinciding with Tom's presence at the construction site, the hushed phone calls, the concealed documents. A soft knock at the door interrupted them. Max stood in the doorway, his hospital administrator badge glinting under the fluorescent lights. Got a minute? Mac asked. Tom squeezed Ava's hand. Get some rest. I'll be back soon. In the hallway, Mac pulled him aside, his voice dropping to a low, urgent tone. Those guys you roughed up? They're not just muscle for hire. They're connected. One of them works security for a casino downtown, lots of mob ties. The other one's got a rap sheet longer than my arm. Assault, extortion, attempted murder. Tom absorbed this grim information, his face unreadable. Rick's deeper in than I thought. That's not all. Mac glanced around before continuing. Been asking around about your brother-in-law. He's got protection from someone high up. Cops, judges. Someone's making sure he stays clean. Can you get me names? Mac nodded. Working on it, but watch your back. These aren't amateurs you're dealing with. Tom's phone buzzed. Detective Ramirez, requesting a meeting. Keep digging, he told Mac. I need everything you can find. Back in Ava's room, he found her dozing, the medication having finally taken effect. It was probably for the best. She didn't need to witness the storm that was brewing. A nurse entered with fresh bandages. Mr. Walker, we need to document her injuries again for the police report. Tom watched as they photographed each bruise, each scrape, evidence, ammunition. His daughter's pain cataloged in megapixels. The detective handling her case called, the nurse said. They want to interview her tomorrow. No. Tom's voice was final, unyielding. She's been through enough. They can talk to me. The nurse hesitated. Sir, in cases of domestic violence, this isn't domestic violence. Tom cut her off, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. This is something else entirely, and I'm handling it. Later, as night settled over the hospital, Tom sat watching Ava sleep. His phone lit up with texts from Eleanor. Desperate pleas, frantic explanations, veiled threats. He deleted them all. The woman he'd married, the mother of his child, was gone. In her place was a stranger who'd conspired to destroy him, who'd watched their daughter being attacked and done nothing. Tom's fingers traced the military ID he still carried in his wallet. 20 years ago, he'd been a different man, a soldier who knew how to deal with enemies, who understood that sometimes violence was the only language people respected. He had buried that man when he came home, built a life of peace. But now, watching his daughter's bruised face, he felt the soldier stirring, rising, ready for war. Eleanor, Rick, they're thugs. They had brought violence into his home, hurt his child, tried to take everything. They were about to learn that Thomas Walker hadn't forgotten how to fight. Chapter 5. The Investigation. The police station buzzed with a low-controlled hum of activity as Tom made his way to Detective Ramirez's desk. Isabella Izzy Ramirez was a sharp-featured woman in her 40s with keen eyes that missed nothing. She motioned him to sit. "You look like hell," she observed, her voice devoid of judgment. "Been a rough few days." Izzy pulled out a thick file, its contents promising to reveal dark secrets. "Got some information you need to see. Your wife's been busy." She spread photos across her desk. Surveillance shots of Eleanor meeting with various men in expensive suits. "That's Julian Torres." Izzy pointed to a handsome man in his 30s. "Con artist. Specializes in real estate fraud. Been on our radar for years, but nothing ever sticks. Your wife's had at least 6 meetings with him in the past month." Tom studied the photos, his jaw clenched. "What's the connection?" "Torres helps people hide money, sets up shell companies, offshore accounts. He's good. We've never been able to prove anything." Izzy leaned forward, her gaze piercing. 3 weeks ago, Eleanor transferred most of your joint savings into an account we can't trace. The paperwork looked legitimate. Your signature was on everything." "I never signed anything." "No, but someone did. Someone good enough to fool the bank." Izzy pulled out more documents. "There's more. Your brother-in-law's businesses, their fronts, money laundering, probably drugs. Those bodyguards who hurt your daughter, they work for the Castellano family." The name hit Tom like a physical blow. The Castellanos. They controlled most of the city's organized crime. If Rick was involved with them. "You need to back off," Izzy warned, her voice serious. "These people don't play games. They'll kill you and never think twice." Tom's laugh was harsh, a bitter sound. "They already tried to destroy me, hurt my daughter. You expect me to walk away?" "I expect you to be smart." Izzy lowered her voice, a flicker of concern in her eyes. "Look, I can't officially help you, but unofficially." She slid a USB drive across the desk. "This contains everything we have on Torres, Rick, and their operations. Account numbers, business records, surveillance reports. Just be careful how you use it." Tom pocketed the drive. "I owe you." "Yeah, you do. And Tom?" She caught his arm as he stood, her eyes locking onto his. "Whatever you're planning, make sure I don't have to arrest you for it." From the police station, Tom drove to his bank. The manager's face was sympathetic as she reviewed his accounts. "I'm sorry, Mr. Walker. The transfers were all properly authorized. Your wife had power of attorney." "Show me everything, what she moved, where it went." The manager pulled up transaction records. Tom's jaw clenched as he watched their savings disappear. College funds, retirement accounts, all gone. Eleanor had been thorough. His phone buzzed. Mac sending coordinates for a meeting. Tom found him in the hospital parking garage, smoking despite regulations. "Got those names you wanted," Mac said, exhaling a plume of smoke. "Judge Michael Preston's been handling all cases involving Rick's businesses, dismissing charges, sealing records. The Castellanos own him." "What about the bodyguards?" "Vincent Caruso and Tony Baglia, career criminals. Caruso's still in ICU. You did a number on him. Baglia was released this morning." Tom nodded, a cold resolve settling over him. "Where does he live?" Mac's eyes narrowed. "Why? Need to ask him some questions? These guys are professionals, Tom. They'll kill you." "They can try." Tom's voice was chillingly calm. You going to tell me where he lives or not? Max sighed, handing over a piece of paper. Your funeral. Tom's next stop was his house. Eleanor had cleared out most of her things, but he wasn't interested in clothes or jewelry. He went straight to her home office, the one place she never let him organize. The filing cabinets yielded a treasure trove: bank statements, correspondence, records of meetings. Eleanor had documented everything, probably to protect herself. Now her own paranoia would help destroy her. A hidden folder contained photos. Eleanor with Rick in intimate situations. Blackmail insurance, Tom realized. She'd been playing everyone, even her partner in crime. His phone rang, Eleanor's number. He almost deleted it, then reconsidered. Time to start playing his own game. Yes? Tommy, please. Her voice was tearful, desperate. We need to talk. This isn't what you think. No. His voice was conversational, utterly devoid of emotion. So you didn't steal my money? Didn't watch while Rick's men threw our daughter down the stairs? I didn't know they would hurt her. Rick promised what? That he'd help you bleed me dry? Set me up for his crimes? Silence on the line. Then, how did you know about? I know everything, Eleanor. About Julian Torres, about the Castellanos, about Judge Preston. He let that sink in, letting the full weight of his words settle upon her. You really should have been more careful with your paperwork. Tom, please. Real fear now in her voice. You don't understand what you're dealing with. These people. No, he interrupted, his voice a low, terrifying growl. You don't understand. You brought these people into my home, let them hurt my child. Now you get to watch while I tear their whole world down. They'll kill you. Better men than them have tried. Tom ended the call. His laptop booted up and he inserted Izzy's USB drive. Hours of surveillance footage, financial records, police reports, everything he needed to understand his enemy's operations. A separate file contained information on Julian Torres's past victims, people he'd conned, lives he'd destroyed. Tom began making notes. These people would want revenge. They just needed someone to show them how to get it. As night fell, Tom cleaned his gun, an old habit that helped him think. Eleanor and Rick thought they were dealing with a simple construction foreman, a predictable man who played by the rules. They had forgotten, or perhaps never knew, what he had been before. The things he'd done in service to his country. The skills he'd learned and never quite forgotten. Tom smiled in the darkness. Time to remind them. The dim light of the bar barely pierced the encroaching gloom as Tom entered. Max, a silhouette carved from 2 decades of hospital administration that had failed to soften his military resolve, sat hunched in a corner, documents strewn like fallen leaves across the scarred tabletop, a half-empty glass of amber liquid glinting before him. Those the hospital reports? Tom's voice was a low rasp as he slid into the booth opposite. Max shoved them across. Caruso's got 3 broken ribs, fractured larynx, possibly permanent knee damage. Taglia's not much better. Broken jaw, dislocated shoulder, concussion. They'll live. His gaze, sharp and knowing, fixed on Tom. Starting a war here, Tom? A chilling calm settled over Tom's features. They started it. I'm just finishing it. More papers materialized from Max's hand. Got the background checks you wanted. Torres has been with Rick for about 2 years. They run a sophisticated operation, preying on desperate souls with fake investment opportunities, draining them dry. Your wife, she helped set up the companies, handled the paperwork. A cold knot tightened in Tom's gut. How many victims? At least 20 that we know of. Most lost everything. Max slid a list of names and addresses across the table. Tom pocketed the list, his eyes glinting with a dangerous resolve. What are you planning? Better if you don't know. These people, they're not amateurs. The Castellanos don't play games. Neither do I. Tom's voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Not anymore. His phone buzzed, a stark interruption. Detective Ramirez requesting another meeting. Tom drained his glass, the last drop of whiskey a burning promise, and rose. Watch your back, Max warned, a familiar refrain. Always do. Outside, the police station parking lot was bathed in the harsh glow of streetlights. Izzy leaned against her car, a file clutched in her hand. Got something you need to see? She stated, her voice tight with urgency. Judge Preston's been making regular deposits to an offshore account, big ones, way more than his salary could explain. Tom's fingers almost instinctively flipped through the damning bank statements. This is what they used to buy him. Looks like it, but that's not all. Izzy pulled out a sheaf of photographs, each a fresh stab of betrayal. Preston's got a weakness for young prostitutes. Rick's people have been providing them along with cocaine. They own him completely. Useful information. Tom's words were clipped, sharp. Izzy grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Don't do anything stupid. These people have protection, money, power. A cold smile, devoid of warmth, touched Tom's lips. But they've never dealt with someone like me. Back in the grim solitude of his dining room, Tom spread his arsenal across the table. Surveillance photos, financial records, witness statements. The scattered fragments of a shattered life finally coalescing into a horrifying mosaic. Rick's operation was a hydra, far vaster than he'd imagined. Real estate fraud, merely the surface shimmer. Beneath it, layers of money laundering, drug trafficking, prostitution, all cloaked and shielded by corrupt officials and shadowy mob connections. Eleanor had known. She had to have known. Yet she'd chosen to align herself with them, to actively participate in the very forces that sought to destroy him. His phone pulsed with an ominous glow, a text from an unknown number. Back off while you can. Last warning. Tom saved the number, a grim satisfaction settling over him. They were worried enough to threaten him. He began to scrawl notes, mapping out the intricate web of connections, identifying the vulnerabilities. Rick's empire relied on silenced victims, on a carefully constructed facade of legitimacy. What would happen when that facade crumbled? Judge Preston was the weak link. Topple him, and the entire protection scheme would collapse. But first, Tom pulled out the list Max had given him. Torres's victims, people who had lost everything, homes, savings, businesses, people with nothing left to lose. It was time to offer them a chance at retribution. His laptop whirred to life, templates for business letters and corporate documents appearing on the screen. Within the hour, he had crafted invitations to a private investment recovery meeting, accompanied by anonymous tips detailing the true destination of their stolen wealth. Seeds of destruction ready to sprout. Next, he accessed the surveillance footage Izzy had provided. Preston leaving a brothel, Preston meeting with known drug dealers, Preston accepting envelopes of cash from Rick's associates. 3 copies, burned to separate drives, one for the media, one for the bar association, one for Preston himself. His phone buzzed again. Ava. Dad, when can I come home? Not yet, baby. Soon. He kept his voice gentle, a fragile shield against the storm. How are you feeling? Better. Sarah's parents have been really nice. A pause. Mom keeps calling. Don't answer. I wasn't going to. Ava's voice hardened, a nascent strength emerging. I saw what they did to you, what they tried to take from us. None of that matters. You're what matters. Just be careful, okay? I can't lose you too. You won't. Tom's resolve solidified, hardening into a formidable weapon. Get some rest. I love you. After hanging up, he returned to his grim preparations. The pieces were in place. Judge Preston's venal corruption, Torres's desperate victims, the pervasive tentacles of the Castellano criminal empire, all connected, all vulnerable. Pull the right threads, and the whole thing would unravel. His phone vibrated once more. Eleanor. This time he answered. Last chance, he stated, cutting her off before she could speak. Tell me where the money is. I can't. Her voice was a fragile whisper of fear. They'll kill me. Then you better hope they get to you before I do. He ended the call, the finality of his words echoing in the silent room. The soldier in him recognized this, not as mere revenge, but as warfare, intelligence gathering. Target assessment, strategic strikes, Eleanor, Rick, Torres, the Castellanos. They were about to discover what happened when a trained killer was pushed too far, when his family was threatened. Tom smiled in the darkness. The storm was gathering. It was time to let it break. The pre-dawn stillness of the warehouse district was broken only by the distant rumble of freight trains. Tom, a shadow among shadows, parked his truck behind an abandoned loading dock. His Glock felt cool and reassuring in his hand. The backup piece strapped to his ankle was a silent promise. His phone illuminated with a barrage of texts. Danny. Rick just tried accessing the accounts. They're all empty. He's freaking out. Max. Castellano enforcers spotted at Rick's office. They don't look happy. Izzy. Preston singing like a bird, naming names, dates, everything. The whole operation's exposed. Tom deleted the messages, his expression a mask of grim satisfaction, and stepped into the night. The warehouse before him, once Rick's deceptive front for money laundering, was now the chosen stage for his undoing. Security cameras, thanks to Danny's cyber prowess, were already blind. Tom moved through the inky blackness, counting the beats of his own heart, perfectly synchronized with his carefully orchestrated plan. Right on cue, a black SUV glided to a stop at the loading dock. Rick stumbled out, clutching a briefcase, his expensive suit rumpled, his face a ghostly pale canvas of terror. Two Castellano soldiers flanked him, their expressions grim and unyielding. The money's here. Rick's voice cracked, a desperate plea. All of it. Just let me explain. The larger soldier snatched the briefcase, its contents already known to Tom. He peered inside. It's empty. What? No, that's impossible. Rick's eyes darted wildly like a cornered animal. It was just here. Someone must have. You lost 10 million of the family's money, the second soldier growled, his voice a low rumble of menace. Mr. Castellano wants answers. Tom stepped into the flickering light, savoring the raw terror that contorted Rick's features. Looking for this? He held up a USB drive, a tiny harbinger of doom. Bank records, transfer histories, proof of where all that money really went. You! Rick lunged, a desperate, futile attempt at retribution, but the soldiers held him back, their grip like iron. This is your fault. No, Rick. This is your fault. You got greedy, sloppy. Tom's voice was conversational, laced with a chilling contempt. Did you really think you could steal from the mob and get away with it? I didn't steal anything. It was business, really. Tom turned to the soldiers, his voice a casual suggestion. Check his offshore accounts, the ones he thought were secret. He's been skimming for years, playing both sides. The larger soldier's phone buzzed. He checked it, then nodded curtly to his partner. Boss says it's true. We found the accounts. Rick's face turned a ghastly white. No, wait. I can explain. The boss doesn't want explanations. The soldier's hand moved, a fluid, practiced motion to his weapon. He wants his money. I'll get it back, I just need time. Time's up, Rick. Tom's smile was a cold, hard line. The feds are closing in. The judge is talking. Your whole operation's exposed. The Castellanos can't risk keeping you alive. Please. Rick turned to the soldiers, his voice a desperate whine. I've got dirt on everyone. Names, dates, recordings. And that's supposed to make us trust you more. The soldier's gun appeared, a silent, deadly promise. Tom stepped back into the shadows. Goodbye, Rick. Say hello to your friends in hell. Rick's screams, choked and muffled by the suppressors, echoed through the vast emptiness of the warehouse. 2 shots. Then silence. Tom waited until the SUV pulled away, then made an anonymous call to the police. They'd find Rick's body, assume it was a mob hit. Case closed. His phone buzzed. Eleanor calling again. This time he answered. It's over, he stated, cutting her off before she could speak. Rick's dead. Torres is in custody. The money's gone. Tom, please. Her voice was a ragged sob laced with raw panic. They're saying it was all fraud, that Rick was laundering money. They're freezing my accounts. I need help. Tom deleted the message without responding. Through his binoculars, he watched Torres, a figure of desperate futility trying to push through the surging crowd of victims, his designer suit now wrinkled and torn. A news van screeched into the parking lot, cameras rolling, capturing every agonizing moment as the victims, their voices a chorus of righteous fury, shared their stories. Decades of fraud, exposed in the harsh, unforgiving light of day. Police cars arrived, their lights flashing a silent symphony of justice. Tom recognized Izzy stepping out of an unmarked vehicle, warrant in hand. She had timed it perfectly. Torres caught on camera, surrounded by his victims, as federal agents moved in to arrest him. Tom's burner phone buzzed. A text from Danny. Files sent to the SEC, Torres's entire operation exposed. Rick's connection to the fraud documented. They'll both go down for this. The plan was working, unfolding with ruthless precision. Torres would talk to save himself, implicating Rick in the fraud. Rick, panicked, would undoubtedly try to run. The Castellanos would realize he had become a liability. Tom started his truck, pulling away, leaving chaos in his wake. 1 target down, 2 to go. His next stop was the construction site, a skeletal framework against the darkening sky, where he had arranged to meet Taglia. The bodyguard who had helped throw Ava down the stairs, the man had agreed to talk, foolishly believing Tom wanted to negotiate a truce. Tom parked behind the half-finished building, checking his recording equipment. Everything Taglia said would be captured, documented, preserved as evidence against Rick and his criminal associates. The bodyguard arrived right on time, alone as instructed, his face still bearing the faded bruises of their last encounter. Make this quick, Taglia growled, his voice thick with unease. I'm not supposed to be here. Tom stepped from the shadows. Tell me about Rick's operation, the money laundering, the protection rackets, all of it. You're crazy. I'm not saying anything. Tom pulled out his phone, a sinister smile playing on his lips, and played a recording. Taglia's partner, Caruso, discussing drug shipments, naming names, detailing criminal operations. The bodyguard's face went pale, his bravado crumbling. How did you? Your partner, Caruso, talks in his sleep. Hospital rooms have surprisingly thin walls. Tom's voice hardened, becoming a cutting blade. Start talking, or this goes to the feds. And the Castellanos. Talia talked for an hour. He detailed Rick's crimes, his insidious connections to organized crime, the intricate web of corruption he had woven. Tom recorded every word. When Taglia finished, Tom handed him an envelope, a plane ticket to Miami, cash for a fresh start. Disappear, or the recording goes public. The bodyguard snatched the envelope with trembling hands and fled into the night. Tom sent copies of the recording to multiple secure locations, an insurance policy in case anything happened to him. His phone buzzed. Max sending coordinates. Time for the next phase. Rick would be panicking now, watching his empire crumble. Eleanor would be desperate. Her stolen money vanished into untraceable accounts. Both of them running scared, making mistakes. Tom smiled in the darkness. The trap was sprung. Now came the fun part. Watching them destroy themselves, trying to escape it. The warehouse district was a graveyard at this hour, silent save for the distant rumble of freight trains. Tom parked his truck behind an abandoned loading dock, the cool weight of the Glock in his hand a familiar comfort. A backup piece strapped to his ankle was a silent assurance. His phone lit up with a rapid succession of texts. Danny. Rick just tried accessing the accounts. They're all empty. He's freaking out. Max. Castellano enforcers spotted at Rick's office. They don't look happy. Izzy. Preston singing like a bird, naming names, dates, everything. The whole operation's exposed. Tom deleted the messages, his expression unreadable, and stepped into the night. The warehouse, once Rick's elaborate facade for money laundering, was now the stage for his downfall. The security cameras, thanks to Danny's surgical precision, were already blind. Tom moved through the shadows, counting heartbeats, each beat a step closer to his carefully orchestrated climax. Right on schedule, a black SUV pulled up to the loading dock. Rick stumbled out, clutching a briefcase, his expensive suit rumpled, his face a pale mask of terror. 2 Castellano soldiers flanked him, their expressions grim, their silence menacing. The money's here. Rick's voice cracked, a desperate plea. All of it, just let me explain. The larger soldier snatched the briefcase, peered inside. It's empty. What? No, that's impossible. Rick's eyes darted wildly, frantic like a cornered animal. It was just here. Someone must have. You lost 10 million of the family's money, the second soldier growled, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. Mr. Castellano wants answers. Tom stepped into view, savoring the raw terror that twisted Rick's features. Looking for this? He held up a USB drive, a tiny harbinger of doom. Bank records, transfer histories, proof of where all that money really went. You! Rick lunged forward, a futile, desperate lunge, but the soldiers held him back, their grip like iron. This is your fault. No, Rick, this is your fault. You got greedy, sloppy. Tom's voice was conversational, chillingly devoid of emotion. Did you really think you could steal from the mob and get away with it? I didn't steal anything. It was business, really. Tom turned to the soldiers, his voice a casual suggestion. Check his offshore accounts, the ones he thought were secret. He's been skimming for years, playing both sides. The larger soldier's phone buzzed. He checked it, then nodded curtly to his partner. Boss says it's true. We found the accounts. Rick's face went ghastly white. No, wait. I can explain. The boss doesn't want explanations. The soldier's hand moved, a fluid practice motion to his weapon. He wants his money. I'll get it back. I just need time. Time's up, Rick. Tom's smile was a cold, hard line. The feds are closing in. The judge is talking. Your whole operation's exposed. The Castellanos can't risk keeping you alive. Please. Rick turned to the soldiers, his voice a desperate whine. I've got dirt on everyone. Names, dates, recordings. And that's supposed to make us trust you more. The soldier's gun appeared, a silent, deadly promise. Tom stepped back into the shadows. Goodbye, Rick. Say hello to your friends in hell. Rick's screams, choked and muffled by the suppressors, echoed through the vast emptiness of the warehouse. 2 shots, then silence. Tom waited until the SUV pulled away, then made an anonymous call to the police. They'd find Rick's body, assume it was a mob hit. Case closed. His phone buzzed. Eleanor calling again. This time he answered. It's over, he stated, cutting her off before she could speak. Rick's dead. Torres is in custody. The money's gone. Tom, please. Her voice shook with tears laced with raw panic. They're saying it was all fraud, that Rick was laundering money. They're freezing my accounts. I need help. Tom deleted the message without responding. Through his binoculars, he watched Torres, a pathetic figure trying to push through the surging crowd of victims. His designer suit now wrinkled and torn. A news van screeched into the parking lot, cameras rolling, capturing every agonizing moment as the victims, their voices a chorus of righteous fury, shared their stories. Decades of fraud exposed in the harsh, unforgiving light of day. Police cars arrived, their lights flashing a silent symphony of justice. Tom recognized Izzy stepping out of an unmarked vehicle, warrant in hand. She had timed it perfectly. Torres, caught on camera, surrounded by his victims as federal agents moved in to arrest him. Tom's burner phone buzzed, a text from Danny. Files sent to the SEC, Torres's entire operation exposed, Rick's connection to the fraud documented. They'll both go down for this. The plan was working, unfolding with ruthless precision. Torres would talk to save himself, implicating Rick in the fraud. Rick, panicked, would undoubtedly try to run. The Castellanos would realize he had become a liability. Tom started his truck, pulling away, leaving chaos in his wake. 1 target down, 2 to go. His next stop was the construction site, a skeletal framework against the darkening sky where he had arranged to meet Taglia, the bodyguard who had helped throw Ava down the stairs. The man had agreed to talk, foolishly believing Tom wanted to negotiate a truce. Tom parked behind the half-finished building, checking his recording equipment. Everything Taglia said would be captured, documented, preserved as evidence against Rick and his criminal associates. The bodyguard arrived right on time, alone as instructed, his face still bearing the faded bruises of their last encounter. Make this quick, Taglia growled, his voice thick with unease. I'm not supposed to be here. Tom stepped from the shadows. Tell me about Rick's operation, the money laundering, the protection rackets, all of it. You're crazy. I'm not saying anything. Tom pulled out his phone, a sinister smile playing on his lips, and played a recording. Taglia's partner, Caruso, discussing drug shipments, naming names, detailing criminal operations. The bodyguard's face went pale, his bravado crumbling. How did you... Your partner Caruso talks in his sleep. Hospital rooms have surprisingly thin walls. Tom's voice hardened, becoming a cutting blade. Start talking, or this goes to the feds and the Castellanos. Taglia talked for an hour. He detailed Rick's crimes, his insidious connections to organized crime, the intricate web of corruption he had woven. Tom recorded every word. When Taglia finished, Tom handed him an envelope, a plane ticket to Miami, cash for a fresh start. Disappear, or the recording goes public. The bodyguard snatched the envelope with trembling hands and fled into the night. Tom sent copies of the recording to multiple secure locations, an insurance policy in case anything happened to him. His phone buzzed. Max sending coordinates. Time for the next phase. Rick would be panicking now, watching his empire crumble. Eleanor would be desperate. Her stolen money vanished into untraceable accounts. Both of them running scared, making mistakes. Tom smiled in the darkness. The trap was sprung. Now came the fun part, watching them destroy themselves, trying to escape it. The morning sun, a gentle contrast to the night's brutal justice, streamed into Tom's kitchen as he made coffee, properly this time. No bitterness from burnt grounds. The morning papers screamed headlines. Major crime ring exposed, and beneath it, a stark subheadline. Prominent businessman found dead in warehouse. His phone buzzed. Max. It's all over the news. Max's voice crackled. Rick's murder, Torres's arrest, the whole operation exposed. You sure about this? It's done, Tom replied, sipping his coffee, the warmth a welcome counterpoint to the cold satisfaction in his heart. The Castellanos think Rick stole their money. The feds think it was a mob hit. Case closed. And Eleanor, broke, alone, running scared. She signed the papers this morning. Good, Max paused. Ava, okay? Getting there. She's coming home today. After hanging up, Tom reviewed the morning's reports. Danny had meticulously erased all traces of their cyber operations. Izzy had sealed the case files, marking Rick's murder as solved, a simple case of organized crime. The Castellanos were too consumed with federal investigations to worry about revenge. His doorbell chimed. Ava, returning from Sarah's house. She looked better, her bruises fading, a genuine smile gracing her lips. Hey, Dad. Tom hugged her gently, the familiar warmth of her in his arms a powerful balm. Welcome home, baby girl. I saw the news. She studied his face, a knowing glint in her eyes. Better if you don't ask questions you don't want answered. Ava nodded. Mom called me. What did she say? Begged me to help her, said she was sorry, that she had nowhere to go. Ava's voice hardened, a steely echo of his own resolve. I told her she should have thought about that before betraying us. Pride swelled in Tom's chest. His daughter was strong, like him, unforgiving of betrayal. His phone buzzed. Detective Ramirez. Just wanted you to know. Izzy's voice was professional, yet there was an underlying current of satisfaction. Torres rolled on everyone. Judge Preston's going away for decades. The whole corruption ring is exposed. Appreciate the update, Tom. Her voice softened. It's over. Let it go now. He ended the call and joined Ava in the kitchen. She was making breakfast, humming softly, a fragile melody of hope. What now? She asked, her gaze meeting his. Now we rebuild. Together. Later, alone in his study, Tom reviewed the final pieces of his meticulously crafted retribution. The offshore accounts where he had hidden Rick's stolen millions, an insurance policy against future threats, the files documenting Eleanor's crimes, ready to destroy her if she ever dared to return. The network of allies he had forged, Max, Danny, Izzy, loyal friends who understood the true meaning of justice. His phone buzzed one last time, an unknown number. He answered cautiously. Mr. Walker. A cultured voice, smooth and dangerous, probably Castellano himself. I want to thank you for exposing Rick's theft. The family appreciates your discretion. We just wanted justice. Indeed, Tom replied, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. Consider yourself under our protection. No one will trouble you or your daughter again. Appreciate that. He ended the call and deleted the number. Everything had worked perfectly. His enemies destroyed, his daughter safe, his future secured. The soldier in him recognized a complete victory. The doorbell rang, Max, Danny, and Izzy arriving for dinner, his new family, forged in battle, tempered by loyalty. Tom joined them, accepting their congratulations, their genuine concern, their unwavering friendship. He was no longer the naive man who trusted too easily. He had become something harder, colder, more dangerous. But watching Ava laugh with their friends, seeing her heal from the betrayal, he knew it had been worth it. He had protected what mattered, annihilated those who threatened his family. The war was over, he had won, and God help anyone who ever tried to hurt them again. 5 years later, the new headquarters of Walker and Associates Construction stood proud against the city skyline, its glass facade emblazoned with the bold, confident letters of the company name. Inside his top-floor office, Thomas Walker reviewed the quarterly reports with the same intense focus he once applied to military operations. At 50, his hair now held more gray than dark, but his blue eyes retained their piercing gaze, and his body, honed by discipline and training, remained combat-ready. The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Walker, your daughter's here. Send her in." Ava strode into the office, now 26 and carrying herself with confident grace. Her law degree, a testament to her unwavering spirit, hung proudly on Tom's office wall, paid for with Rick's stolen millions, a fact that always brought a wry smile to his lips. She had specialized in prosecuting financial crimes, transforming their family's tragedy into a potent weapon against others like Julian Torres. "Ready for lunch, Dad?" Tom closed his laptop. "Always. How's the Martinez case going?" "Another wannabe Julian Torres." Ava's smile was sharp, a predatory glint in her eyes. He thought he could run a real estate scam targeting elderly veterans. Bad choice. Judge granted all our motions this morning. He's looking at 20 years minimum. They took the elevator to the parking garage where Tom's new truck waited. Still practical, but now top of the line. Some habits died hard. "Heard from Max this morning," Tom said as they drove. "The hospital's naming him Chief of Operations. Good, he deserves it." Ava checked her phone. "Izzy's making Deputy Chief next month. Danny's cybersecurity firm just landed another government contract." Their friends had prospered in the years since Eleanor and Rick's downfall. Loyalty, they had learned, paid far better dividends than betrayal. The restaurant was upscale but discreet, one of their regular spots. The Metro D led them to their usual corner table, strategically positioned to offer a clear view of all entrances. Another habit that hadn't faded. "Sarah's getting married next month," Ava mentioned as they studied the menus. "Asked me to be maid of honor." Tom nodded. Sarah had been Ava's steadfast rock during the darkest days, offering shelter and unwavering support. Her family had become an extension of their own. "Mom tried reaching out again," Ava said quietly, her voice tinged with an old familiar pain. Tom's hand tightened almost imperceptibly on his water glass. "When?" "Last week. Email from a new account." Ava's voice was cold, resolute. "Wanted to explain her side. Now that she's found peace or whatever, I blocked her. Tom nodded his approval. Eleanor had made several attempts over the years to reconnect, each met with the same impenetrable silence. She had moved to Florida after the divorce, remarried some retiree, attempting to rebuild her life. Tom kept tabs on her through various channels, not out of sentiment, but out of strategy. Know your enemies, even defeated ones. Any word on Rick's old associates? Ava asked. Castellanos are mostly legitimate now. The old man died last year. His sons are running clean businesses. Tom had maintained a carefully neutral relationship with the crime family, mutual respect, mutual distance. Julian's still in prison. Another decade at least. Their meals arrived. Steak for Tom, grilled salmon for Ava. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the unspoken understanding between them a tangible presence. Company's expanding again, Tom mentioned. Bought that development firm in Phoenix, the one Rick tried to steal from that widow. Ava's smile was vindictive, a flash of shared triumph. Nice touch. Tom returned the smile. The company's growth had been strategic, methodical. Each acquisition either strengthened their position or settled old scores. The millions he had stolen from Rick had been the seed money for an empire built on legitimate success. Detective Rodriguez called yesterday, Ava said. Remember that cold case they reopened? Rick's murder? Tom's face revealed nothing. Oh, officially closed now, ruled a mob hit. Case inactive. Ava met his eyes, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. They had never discussed Tom's exact role in Rick's death. Ava had never asked, understanding that some questions were better left unvoiced, but she knew her father, knew what he was capable of, knew he would do anything to protect his family. After lunch, they walked to the park where Ava had played as a child. The old playground had been replaced by new equipment, funded by an anonymous donation from Walker and Associates. James proposed, Ava said suddenly. Tom turned to study his daughter. James Chen was a prosecutor she had met 2 years ago. Smart, honest, devoted to Ava. Tom had, of course, run extensive background checks. The man was clean. What did you say? Said I needed to think, or to trust, after what happened with Mom. James isn't Rick or Eleanor, Tom said carefully. He's proven himself. You approve? I approve of anyone who makes you happy and treats you right. Tom's voice hardened, a subtle warning, and he knows what'll happen if he doesn't. Ava laughed, a clear, joyous sound. Yeah, he's terrified of you, in a healthy way. They watched children play for a while, parents hovering nearby, normal lives, normal concerns. Tom sometimes wondered what that was like. Izzy mentioned they found Eleanor's ex-boyfriend Julian's old storage unit, Ava said. Lots of documents, could cause problems for some people. Already handled, Tom replied. Danny scrubbed anything sensitive. As far as anyone knows, it was empty. The company's cybersecurity division, run by Danny with military-grade protocols, had proven invaluable over the years. Information was power, and Tom believed in controlling both. His phone buzzed. Max sending their monthly security report. Another ritual born of past betrayals. Trust, but verify. Always. Sarah wants you to walk her down the aisle, Ava mentioned. Her dad's okay with sharing the honor. Tom felt a warmth spread through his chest. Family wasn't always blood. Sometimes it was the people who stood by you in the darkness. They walked back to the office, passing the construction site for their newest project, a women's shelter, being built in partnership with Izzy's domestic violence task force. Another way of balancing the scales. Dinner tonight? Ava asked as they reached her car. James wants to talk to you properly. Tom nodded. Tell him to bring that bourbon he's been saving, and remind him I'm an excellent shot. Ava kissed his cheek. Love you, Dad. Try not to terrorize my boyfriend too much. No promises. Watching her drive away, Tom reflected on the years since Eleanor's betrayal. He had rebuilt more than a business empire. He had forged a new family, stronger than blood, created a legacy built on loyalty instead of lies. Back in his office, Tom reviewed the day's reports: construction projects across 3 states, investment portfolios managed by trusted associates, security briefings from Danny's team, a well-oiled machine, every part carefully controlled. Max's weekly check-in arrived by encrypted email. Eleanor still in Florida, new husband's health failing, no suspicious activities. Julian denied parole again, no outside contacts. Castellanos' business dealings clean, territory stable. Judge Preston dead in prison, natural causes. Taglia still in witness protection, keeping his silence. Tom archived the report with 5 years of similar updates. The past never died, but it could be managed, contained, controlled. His phone rang. James Chen requesting a meeting before dinner. Probably wanting to do things properly, asked permission, old-fashioned, but Tom appreciated the gesture. Come by the office, he told James. We'll talk. The young prosecutor arrived promptly, suit pressed, manner respectful but not fearful. Good signs. Sir, I want to discuss Ava. Sit. Tom gestured to a chair. Let's talk about your intentions. 2 hours later, satisfaction settled in Tom's chest. James had proven himself again. Honest about his feelings, clear about his plans, unafraid to stand his ground when challenged. A worthy partner for Ava. The engagement ring James showed him was elegant, not flashy. The prenup he proposed was fair. His background remained clean, his career trajectory solid. Most importantly, he understood what family meant, what loyalty required. I'll never hurt her, James promised. Never betray her trust. No, Tom agreed pleasantly. You won't, because you know what happens to people who hurt my family. James met his eyes steadily. Yes, sir. I know exactly what happens. Tom smiled. The young man had done his research, understood the warnings wrapped in Rick's unsolved murder, Eleanor's exile, Julian's downfall. Good. Welcome to the family, son. Now, about that bourbon. Later that night, Tom stood at his office window watching his city sparkle. His empire had been built on the ashes of betrayal, forged in the fires of revenge, but it had become something more. A fortress protecting those he loved. A legacy worthy of his daughter's inheritance. Eleanor and Rick had taught him valuable lessons about trust and betrayal. He had learned them well, built his new life on their bitter wisdom. Now he had everything they tried to steal: wealth, power, respect, and things they'd never understood: loyalty, family, honor. His phone buzzed with an alert from Danny's security team. Routine update, nothing urgent. The world turned. Threats emerged and were contained. Life went on. But now he controlled the game instead of being played. Tom smiled in the darkness, remembering Eleanor's tears, Rick's terror, Julian's pleas for mercy. They thought him weak, predictable, easily destroyed. Their mistake. Nobody would make that mistake again. His new family, Ava, James, Max, Izzy, Danny, even Sarah, understood what mattered: loyalty above all, honor among warriors, protection for those who earned it, destruction for those who betrayed it. The past was settled, the future secured. And Thomas Walker stood guard over both, unchanged in the ways that mattered, a protector, a warrior, a man who never forgave betrayal and never forgot his enemies. Let anyone who doubted that truth ask Eleanor, rotting in Florida exile, ask Julian, growing old in prison, ask Rick. Oh, wait, they couldn't ask Rick anything, not anymore. Tom's smile widened as he turned from the window. Time to head home, prepare for dinner with his growing family. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new chances to prove that loyalty mattered more than blood. The war was long over. He had won it completely. Now he ruled the peace with the same iron will that had brought him victory, just as it should be, just as it would always be. After all, some things never changed, and Thomas Walker's dedication to protecting his family, to punishing those who threatened it, would never change at all. Ladies and gentlemen, since you've listened to the end of this story, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments which state you're watching from. Let's see what percentage of elite viewers make it to the end. And please kindly turn your attention to the screen after this message. There you'll find a full playlist of thrilling stories, a subscribe button for the channel, and our most captivating story. Click, enjoy, and thank you.